So one of the questions that voters have right now, and we hear a lot about, is inflation. Can you define inflation for us?
Sure. Inflation is an increase in the average price levels so think across all goods and services, not just groceries, not just, your auto insurance or whatever. It's everything across the board. It's steady or rapidly increasing prices for goods and services over time.
And so one of the other issues that we have is we've gone through an inflationary period. People are struggling to sort of come to terms with what that means. So one of the things we're trying to understand is, what are the causes of the current inflationary environment?
Well, first of all, inflation is caused by what fuels this increase over time is too much money chasing too few goods. And that's going to drive up the price of goods. Too much demand and money from employers chasing too few workers. That's going to drive up wage inflation, which is going to increase costs, which is going to fuel this whole thing. Okay. Now, the current episode, how in the world did we get here? Very different than the 70s, by the way. That was oil OPEC induced. This one's very different. I would say this one's pandemic and pandemic response induced. Okay. So you come out of a period in the late teens where there's no inflation anywhere around the world, not in the U.S., not in any developed country. In 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, there's no inflation to be found. Then we have the pandemic. We shut down economies. It's the biggest, the deepest recession in virtually the history of the country, certainly in anybody's memory. By far the deepest recession, but fortunately the shortest. And that recession hit everybody. Some countries closed down their economies for months and years. Okay. So what we did then to try to get through this is government rode to the rescue. Okay. Started in 2020. Government programs were put in place to try to get people through this. Employers were given money to try to retain employees. Unemployment insurance programs were bolstered because, of course, many got thrown off the employment rolls and got separated from their jobs. And so chaos ensued. Okay, but late in 20, into 21, and into 22, here's what we found ourselves with. First of all, a fair amount of cash had accumulated. Why? Because we were able to kind of get through this with government aid and with the fact that we stopped traveling, we stopped going to entertainment, we stopped spending on a whole vector of services that we had been spending on. So we accumulated cash. Okay. And then we went on kind of an Amazon spending frenzy where we started spending on goods and services. And many of these goods just didn't exist. They weren't, the supply chains were not functioning as efficiently as they were pre-pandemic. And that just skyrocketed prices in the US, in Europe, in every developed country that I can find. Prices went up, and the experience has been pretty much the same. Monetary authorities then kind of kicked in worldwide, and inflation has moderated in late 23 and into 24, fortunately.